Blacks in Technology.
Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology. Blacks in technology.
Welcome everyone to the Blacks in Technology Bit Tech Talk podcast. This is episode number 112 with our guest Bryan Smith on how to monetize IoT. That's the Internet of Things in your city. This is a podcast show where we talk to black men and women who are engineers, innovators, educators, inventors, change makers, and entrepreneurs doing amazing things in the world of technology. This podcast is where they share their stories, experiences, ideas, knowledge, and perspective on tech with the BIT community. I'm your host, Greg Greenlee. I'm the founder of the Blacks in Technology organization. If this is your first time checking us out, you can find us at the following URLs. We are at Black in Technology on Twitter. That's BLKINTECHNOLOGY. You can check our website, www.blacksintechnology.net. We are also on Facebook, facebook.com/Blacks in Technology. There's also a LinkedIn group and an Instagram page under Blacks in Technology. And if you are listening in and you are on Twitter right now, if you have any questions for our guests, tweet them using the hashtag BitTechTalk, and we'll make sure that your questions get asked and hopefully answered. So BITTECHTALK. Blacks in Technology is a tech-focused community and media organization, and we're focused on increasing diversity in technology through increased visibility and participation of black women and black men in technology. We always focus on forming new partnerships and opportunities to assist our members with their continued professional growth and development. So if you want to partner with us, send us an email to contact us at blacksintechnology.net. If you wish to sponsor us, sponsor our podcast. If you have any general inquiries, send them to that same email. So we're going to get into this a little bit later, but I do want to announce that we have partnered with the DevOps Days Indianapolis. We're going to talk a little bit further about that in detail with our guest Bryan Smith, but we are official media partners with DevOps Days Indianapolis, and with that comes a few perks. So we're going to be talking about a code so that BIT community members can get a discount, and then we're also going to talk about a contest we'll be holding to raffle off some free passes to the event. So without further ado, I definitely want to introduce our guest, Bryan Smith. Give you a little bit about Bryan Smith. He's a Debian, GNU Linux, and GNU Linux, I should say, and BSD enthusiast and systems engineer. Bryan has used free and open source operating systems since the late 90s. So he's an OG in the game. He contributes to several open source projects and has helped launch several startup ISPs based in this area using free and open source software as a framework. He is the Orlando initiator of the Things Network. The Things Network is a global community-owned network that powers many IoT initiatives worldwide. So I'd like to bring Bryan on. Bryan, you there?
Hey, Greg, how you doing? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm here.
Thanks a lot for joining us tonight. I really appreciate it. I do want to give a little bit of background information on how we met. I think it was 2009. The Southeast Linux Fest. I think we were.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. We were the only. I wouldn't say the only, but we were one of a few black people that were at the Southeast Linux Fest. And we hooked up and we connected there, and we stayed in contact here and there ever since. Bryan was also part of the BIT IRC channel when we had our IRC channel. And that's, for all you techies who know about IRC. We're definitely tech over here. So we had an IRC channel for a while, and then we switched over to using Slack. And Bryan is also a member of our Slack community too. So Bryan, man, how's it going? How's things been your way?
Things have been going good. Quick note, I'm still in the Blacks in Technology IRC channel, by the way.
With who?
So I'm the only one in there. I'm holding it down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I definitely. Go ahead.
no, I was saying I'm glad that you're part of the Slack channel, because I know we abandoned the IRC channel quite some time ago.
Yeah, but you know, a lot of geeks still still use IRC. You know, Slack is. Some people hate Slack, some people hate IRC, but you know, I sort of cut my teeth on IRC, so I can't turn my back on it.
I did too, man. I did too. So you know, when I started the IRC channel, man, I was so excited as the geek, the Linux geek inside of me jumped out, because I was finally the moderator of an IRC channel.
Yeah, operator.
Right, the operator. I was, you know, I've been part of a lot of different IRC channels over the years, and so I was kind of geeked out about that, man.
Yeah.
It's like a privilege.
I recall you abusing that power a few times too.
Oh, right.
Yeah, hey, man, kicking people out of the channel, you know.
You don't act right, you gotta go, man. you don't like what did Martin used to say? You don't gotta go home, but you gotta leave up out of here.
Yeah, sure. I remember that. Most definitely.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, you know, where you're from, tell us how you got involved in tech.
Well, so I got involved in tech way long ago, back when I used to just take things apart, right? You know, anything in the house that was, you know, that wasn't nailed down, I was taking it apart. My father would come home and I'd be sweating, and he'd look over me like, "Why are you sweating?" And little did he know, I had the TV apart, the microwave, whatever, fans, anything, man. Anything that had moving parts, I had to see what made that thing move, or even if it didn't have moving parts, right? If it was a radio, I needed to look inside and see the internals and try to, you know, get a sense of, you know, what was making this thing tick.
Yeah.
But so currently now I'm here in Central Florida, which is you know, where I'll just say my roots are. You know, this is what I like to represent, Florida. We get a bad rap, and I do my best to try to represent it in a positive light.
Definitely. So tell me, growing up, did you have any mentors in tech? Like, you know, for me, for instance, you know, a friend of my mom's was into electronics, and he used to actually take me to work with him and just kind of share some of the things he was into, and things like he would show me schematics, and we would work on things, and that's kind of how I was kind of initiated into learning about technology. And from there, you know, my dad helped me out with getting my first Commodore 16 computer, and then from there there was a teacher in my junior high school. Her name was Pamela Busso. She actually had a programming class way back in the days, man, before that type of stuff was even, you know, mainstream, and especially in schools. And then, you know, and so I've had all these people, you know, in my life, and not necessarily as they weren't necessarily mentors. They were, you know, most of them were influencers, I would say. So who was that, or did you have someone like that growing up?
Oh, most definitely. So my father, first and foremost, he was a single father raising three kids, three young boys. And so my father was, so he was also a shade tree mechanic, you know, okay. So Pops had all types of things, you know, soldering irons, routers, and just things. He used to build cabinets as well. And so he had all types of things just on the shelf that I would get into. Right. And so, and then in addition to that, back in the day, I don't know if anybody remembers the Coleco Atom.
Oh yeah, I remember the Atom. Dude, I wanted the Atom after the Commodore. I wanted the Atom because the Atom was a much cooler console than what the Commodore. Because I had the 16, I didn't have the Commodore 64. If you look up the Commodore 16. The Commodore 64 was in a kind of a cream-colored case, but the Commodore 16 was in a really dark gray case. So
Yeah.
But I wanted the Atom.
Yeah. Yeah, the Atom was no joke, man. It was it had a digital cassette, like yeah, and so and we had a printer, we had the remote controls, we had the Buck Rogers game, but then there was a basic interpreter on there, and so it taught you how to do, I think it was tic-tac-toe or something, and if you typed in the commands wrong, it said syntax error. Right. And so like that was my introduction on a little rinky-dink 8-bit, but at the same time, that was a computer, right? Like that was a real deal PC back in the day. Yeah. And so, went from that to, me getting a proper computer. It was some older IBM box. And I remember I talked my father into letting me get a sound card, a Sound Blaster 16, right? And this was much later. And I ended up putting the card in, and it was just like I had sound and I was playing games, and that was a computer in the house, but I was fortunate enough to be in programs in school to where we had computers, and I grew up using the 5.5 floppy, 5.25 floppy, right? So you had the A drive, you had the B drive, and in the A drive you ran the OS, and then the B drive was your program. And and that thing would spin up, and it would sound like somebody was throwing a boomerang over your head. Oh yeah. So
interesting analogy.
No doubt. And so it was school that actually kept me in technology, but it was my father that had the wherewithal to put these things around me. And I remember literally one day he said, "This is going to be your thing." And I mean, naturally, it was already something that he thought I had a proclivity towards. And I also remember one day he said, "This is what I want. I want you to be here, your other brother to be there, your other brother to be there. We could talk to each other through this computer." And this was like way before voice over IP was like a big deal. And he said, "It may sound crazy, but this is what I want." So yeah, it was definitely my father, definitely. And other individuals externally, just for me, it was being able to see people achieve greater things, and naturally, I was I wanted to be in space camp. Man, I wanted to be in space camp so bad, but it was too expensive. But beyond that, I just looked at the environment and sort of it was true to myself and just stayed geeky, man. Revenge of the Nerds.
Got you. It's so funny when I look back, and I didn't realize it at the time, how fortunate I was to have a computer in the household. Like when you're getting things, especially as a young kid, and I go through this with my kids right now, is they take so much for granted because they have it, right? And my dad was probably, it sounds like how your dad was, which he was a jack of all trades, right? He knew how to do just about everything, from electrical to carpentry to working on cars and mechanic and all that stuff, right? And he worked very hard, and he was a really hard worker. And so it was at Christmas when I got the Commodore 16, and at that time, I'm just like, my brother he was far from computers as anyone was back then. But me, I was like, seeing war games, and it was like, oh, this is cool. This is what I want to do.
Oh yeah, war games.
And so when I got it, I was just like, oh yeah, I got a computer. That's cool. The Atari console was huge at that time, and there were all these commercials coming out, and like you said about the Atom, there was Commodores, and there were other like home computers at that time. And so I just thought, like, this was the thing, and I just got one of the things, and I'm cool. But looking back, coming from a predominantly black neighborhood, I don't recall anyone else having a computer in their household, and the fact that I did, like, that was a huge deal, and I didn't even realize it back then how huge of a deal and how much it kind of shaped me for the future and what I would be doing now. I knew that I would probably be doing something in computers, but I didn't kind of have an idea like when and what it would be and things like that. So, big ups to dads, right, for leading us on that path.
Most definitely. But what was funny too is, back in the day, you treated a computer like a sarcophagus, right? Like you had a piece of plastic that you put over the top of the thing just so dust didn't get into it, and the keyboard may have had a cover on it. Yeah, it was a big deal. I definitely didn't at the time didn't understand that it would have such a major impact on my life, but. Right. But I, as I said, I took it apart. I broke it a few times. I even started fixing other people's computers, even though I never knew how to work on computers. I just broke it, made it worse, and then, figured out how to fix what I broke and their issue.
Nice. And that brings up a very, I guess, interesting thing that I remember from the IRC channels about you. And you stated that you were a polyglot. Is that the correct term?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, no. So it could be. So I generally teach myself in a vacuum, right? Just because it may be something that, like a language that I'm interested in, and right. Nobody else around me speaks it, and so the phonetics, that component of it, and just the study of the languages is what interests me more so than the spoken component. Because see, the spoken component, that's when things sort of fall apart, because when you teach yourself in a vacuum, then you try to communicate with other individuals that's their native language, they look at you like you're crazy. You know what I mean? But because, I'm mispronouncing words, even though I can read, certain scripts just by, looking at it, I know exactly what the letters are. I know how to pronounce it in my own way, but it's not exactly the correct way to pronounce it. But, for me, like, for instance, Hebrew, Devanagari Sanskrit, I don't know German. I'm telling you, I don't. But what I was doing doing documentation for this German router project, just because I had a great interest in German, because a lot of philosophical works are written in German. A lot of, pretty awesome philosophers are German. So, here I am doing just because I knew GNU Linux and I really knew Debian, I was like the documentation guy that made sure their translations were all good, even though I didn't fully know German. But I'm more of an autodidact though.
Okay. So how's that helped or influenced, your I guess your tech background?
Okay, so in the autodidact part, being self-taught, a lot of, and especially with free Libre and open source software, right? Like that, those components are available for you, right? And so with that, so in a traditional school environment, you have curriculum, and your curriculum builds on top of it. So you take your 101 class before you take 202, blah, 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 blah. Well, for me, at times, I don't want someone to tell me how far I can go until I can get to the next level, right? So I may, so for instance, just like with cloud computing, right? Like, for instance, the software OpenStack, I want to just be able to grab OpenStack off of the shelf and spin up my own private cloud without having someone having to tell me, okay, you need this fundamental first, that fundamental, and this other fundamental. I have enough wherewithal. Now, true indeed, it is sort of masochistic because some things you have to just learn, and in that learning process, it ends up taking you a little more time.
Right.
But in the end, I believe that I learn faster, and I pick up things without certain fears of someone telling me, oh, okay, well, you didn't pass such and such level before you didn't pass level 9 before you get to level 10.
Gotcha. Interesting. Very cool. So I want to start. I want to get into what our topic is the Internet of Things, and before we get into the meat and potatoes of Internet of Things, IoT. Tell us what Internet of Things is, because this is a huge buzzword and a lot of people are using it, and everything nowadays is kind of Internet of Things. But give us what your definition of Internet of Things is.
Okay, so first, I'm going to give this highly quoted figure. Well, there are a few figures. They're saying that by 2020 there's going to be like 50 billion connected devices. Some people say 50. Gartner at one point was saying 50 billion. Other groups may say 30 billion. Depending on who's quoting it and what they have to sell, it depends on how big the number gets, right? At times. And so the Internet of Things is really not so much about internet or the things in itself. It's really about an ecosystem of connectivity, because see, Internet of Things is a phrase that was coined well after the technology was actually already being utilized in the industrial space, right? So Internet of Things has been around since at least the 80s, right? And so, as I said, if you think about it as an ecosystem with bunches of verticals and different domains, then you sort of get a better picture, right? So at one level in IoT, you've got the personal level, and another level you've got more of the connectivity and middleware. And by middleware, just think about a panel or something that an individual may use to view a status of something. And then in addition to that, you've got a different compute or action layer, right? And so in it all, it's a lot of times you also see the acronym M2M, which is machine to machine. So you've got machine to machine, you've got machine to person, M2P, you've got person to machine, and you've got person to person, which can all be driven by IoT. And so if you take the concept or the example of a smartwatch, right?
Right.
And then you take, so let's just say we both have smartwatches and we do workouts, right? And so you interact with that device. My current smartwatch, it's got Bluetooth connectivity, wireless connectivity. When I say wireless, I mean Wi-Fi. It's got GSM capability, and it's got a GPS. It can receive GPS too. And so with all of that happening, and it's got NFC too. Now think about it. So with all of that in this Samsung watch, this is a connected device. But the internet component, a lot of people are really sort of focusing on the either they focus on the internet component or the thing component, and they at times trivialize both when there is a lot in either of the two. For example, I was just at a meetup and the guy said, well, you don't really need your toaster to talk to your wallpaper, right? It's just pointless. Well, I believe that you actually, in a sense, you actually do need your toaster to talk to your wallpaper. And it's not to do it just to do it, but I bet you if you looked up some data, right, a lot of, a toaster, let's just say your toaster has some sort of mechanical issue with it, and the elements overheat. The thing that's going to know first is that wallpaper, right? Or the drywall. He said drywall. So your drywall is going to know the toaster's on fire, right? Or at the same time, before that drywall even catches on fire, it could potentially sense something. But if you think about trying to send all of that data to the cloud, it may not react it may not be able to respond fast enough. So there, within those domains, there's a capability to do sensing and things at the edge to where intelligent decisions are made on behalf of the toaster, on behalf of the wallpaper.
Okay, so you started going into, let's talk about the I guess the architecture of this a little bit, because you said the edge, and there may be some people that are listening and like, okay, what's the edge? What's that considered? So talk about that a little bit before we go any further.
Okay, all right. So architecturally, there are a few models, but one model that a lot of people sort of like is it's called the IoT World Form Reference Model, right? And so let me see if I can throw this in the Slack channel. And so at the first layer, you've got the physical devices, right? Mm-hmm. And so and then too, let me throw out a couple other concepts too. So and at that first layer is what is seen to be called the edge. But then people also have the concept of mist and fog. So, you got cloud computing, right?
Right.
And so cloud is at the second level, the connectivity layer, right? Mm-hmm. But when you bring the cloud closer to the ground, then you've got fog. So Cisco coined the term fog, like fog computing. But and beneath the fog is the mist. Which the edge sort of contains those both. And so at the edge or closest towards the device, right, you've got this sensor, and right now everybody's like super excited. They're like, oh yeah, 50 billion devices, 30 billion devices by 2020, let's do it. Well, the reality of it is that once you bring all of these devices online that are sending all of this data, you end up having issues with throughput, right? Like our internet is not big enough. We may not even have enough data centers, right? If you can make enough devices that will consistently send this data to where we're going to, and send pointless data at the same time, data that's not actionable. So the whole point is to keep that data at the lower levels, right? So that you can make actions and or only send actionable data towards the cloud, or not even send it to the cloud at all, right? Because, so for instance, in a mission critical situation, if you've got some sort of tsunami monitor, right, you don't want to be sending that data to the cloud first before you can act on it. You need to leave that, at best at the fog, and then there's a loop that happens back down to the physical, the edge layer, and then, there can be some sort of monitoring or signal sent to the cloud later, but the thing that's actionable needs to happen closer to the device instead of sending it all to the cloud. And so once again, you got the physical layer, the physical level 1, you've got connectivity at 2, edge computing is 3, and edge computing is not the edge itself, but it's above. Then you got the data accumulation layer, which is where you store things. You got a data abstraction layer, which is where you aggregate the data and access it. And then the application layer above that, which is for reporting, where people actually say, that's interesting. And then above that, you got the collaboration layer, or the layer where business process takes place, to where someone says, we need to turn the lights off, at such and such time, because from these analytics that we've gotten from the layer 6, we come to find that we'll save more money by doing it at this time. So that's where the people actually come in. But in all of these levels, there are individuals.
Got you. So just so I understand this a little bit more, and for the people that are listening, what you're basically saying is that the edge is kind of where you want like the actionable data to kind of reside. So for instance, if just as an example, just say let's just go back to the wallpaper thing. There's wallpaper, and it just happens to sense the temperature within inside the house, right? As long as that temperature stays between 70 and 75, it's just constantly sending that data up to the cloud. But if it suddenly gets so super hot in there to the point to where there's a possibility of a fire or something like that, you want that at the edge layer and that actionable and to be actionable on the edge layer. So maybe it can do something like turn on some type of fire suppressant system or something like that.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, and it's not for it to report all the time, because if you took a community with several walls in a house, several homes in a community, and you just keep going and going, and that exponentially grows, and then the exponential growth is a thing that it's unnatural, right? And with that, we can't scale infrastructure. Like we start to run into an infrastructure problem. If we had 50 billion devices, we really could get to that. 50 billion devices connected by 2020.
Right.
We'd have some serious problems. And so, yeah, you're totally right with that in regards to the thing to be actionable closer towards the ground or closer to the edge rather than going all the way to the cloud, because in that period of time, there could be some sort of catastrophe, or like there's a real human component, behind all of this, which connects into the Things Network.
Gotcha. So with all this data, flowing, there's a huge concern around security and around how much data is being sent, and what companies are doing and things of that nature. I know I've seen some conversations in the Slack channel where people are like, I don't want my toaster, or I don't want my refrigerator connected to the internet, right? They don't want people knowing that their eating patterns, or how often they open their refrigerator, or the things that they buy and things like that. What do you say to people like that who about are their concerns legitimate, or what's your take on that?
Well, I definitely would say their concerns are legitimate, but at the same time, these people use Facebook, right? Which is
Right.
yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But so there's a bit of legitimacy to it, but at the same time, as long as we get involved, then we can push some of these companies and groups that are, basically the institutors or the ones who are deploying this technology, to put security first. There's a saying in IoT, and the saying is, I like the way that the S in IoT stands for security. and so,
right.
yeah, it is a sad state of affairs. And so it's a thing the way, I mean, it really is, because see, we have the technology, but being that IoT is growing so fast, right? And certain people, IoT, you can go to market really fast, right? And you've got huge manufacturers who know, okay, we've got these grades of security, we've got these secure elements that we can put into the hardware, but that secure element may cost $2 per unit. That is a ton, right? Or even 70 cents. That's a lot of money. Well, so they look at it and they say, all right, well, we want to keep our bill of materials, the cost is really low, so they push that thing out, and they just sort of throw it over the fence. And then here you have individuals who are installing smart door locks, where the smart door lock is not using a secure handshake. And so too, in the whole thought of, let's just say, the toaster being connected, right? Well, so if your toaster is connected and the data is anonymized, or you can, like there's this whole concept of using blockchain, which well, I don't want to get too technical, but there are a lot of ways that you can make IoT and the data. You can have some components of the data open and some of it anonymous or anonymized. On the end, though, the way things are going in the future, it's going to be to the point to where, like your blender, your toaster, those are things that you generally replace most in the kitchen, right? Well, depending. Some people have like super old toasters, but so if your toaster was having issues, right, and your toaster is the thing in your kitchen that's going to set your kitchen on fire, and your toaster, let's say, it runs for a certain amount of hours, and then at the same time you've got certain analytics that are happening that knows that you buy certain things from Amazon and your toaster could tell you, look, it's about time for me to be replaced. And guess what? There's this really nice toaster that, is in a specific color or the style or, the certain manufacturer that you tend to like. Let's put one of those in your cart for you or let's just order it for you. And so it's going to come to a point to where, we sort of have this interfaceless society to where these intelligent decisions are going to be made machine to machine,
right?
All enabled through IoT. So you can not like it. Trust me, I'm all about security and having my data be mine. But at the same time, there's a major open data component that cities and societies that can benefit from, and you will play part in that. You will play part in that whether you want to or not, right? It's sort of coming, and so you can either opt in now or just be forced to do it later.
Yeah, I mean, I can already see people who are kind of opponents of IoT kind of buying into it anyhow, just from a convenient standpoint, right? Like, so if I have a refrigerator that's able to tell me that I'm out of milk, for instance, and I don't have to order milk, or I don't have to go to the store and get milk anymore, Amazon, it can be ordered and delivered right to me without me, moving a muscle or saying anything. Like, I could see some of these people that are kind of opponents to the Internet of Things and all the data is saying, coming to a compromise and saying, yeah, okay, well, that is pretty convenient. I'll go ahead and opt into that, because that's just Amazon is now in the grocery business, right? And so how easy is that to just have your refrigerator order you eggs and milk and bread and what have you, and you not have to worry about that. It just gets delivered to your doorstep.
Oh yeah. And so part of that solution, that use case, I'm pretty sure. So I know you've been in like hotels where they've got the little sensor pad, right? And if you move the bottle of water or something, it automatically charges you $3. But at one point,
is that a thing? I didn't know that. Oh yeah, man. That's that's been a thing for like a long time. Yeah. So yeah, it's like that. That's already there. But at one point, people thought it was crazy to buy things on a computer, right? Like, and then another point, pay for water, but these things are commonplace, right? Like, there will be a time when people will be like, you actually went to a store and bought your own clothes, right? Like with AI and machine learning, man, these things are coming to the point where, and the technology and the devices are getting so small to where things can be embedded, and you'll be out running, and then your shoe will be like, oh well, you're running too close on your instep, and you're gonna end up getting plantar fasciitis. Let me order you a new pair of shoes. Wow.
Boom. and then the shoes show up, and then it's like, oh yeah, my shoe told me that I was gonna get myself a foot injury, so it ordered me some shoes.
Right. So let me. So even that right there alone kind of raises some concerns. Like what's the? And I'll put it like this, and this is not. Hopefully, I'm not sounding too doomsday-ish about this. Right? Capitalism drives a lot of corruption, a lot of greed, right? Like no matter what, if you want to look at greed, want to look at corruption, you trace it back. You're going to trace it back to the fact that people are trying to make as much money as they can in a limited amount of time, right? So the concern of, just taking the example that you just stated, how do we guard against companies taking advantage of IoT in order to push product? So let's go back to your example about ordering shoes, for instance. Like, what's to say that a company is not putting in logic within within that product that just says, okay, come up with some type of ailment that's going to cause like this person to buy a pair of shoes even though they really don't need it. We can just say that they suffer from this and have them order a pair of shoes just to kind of push our product. What safeguards are in place?
Well, so if you look at it on the integration side of things, right now I can make a sensor that I designed talk to my garage door, which could talk to my trash can, and I enable those integrations myself, and so that's something that I opt into. So you can have individuals, in the future who may be like dinosaurs, right? Who say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I want to go to the store myself and buy my own clothes.
Gotcha.
And then you have other individuals who say, okay, as I said, when you look at the integration of everything, if you are, brand XYZ loyal and Acme clothes loyal, then and Acme shoes,
right?
And you can opt into their integration. Now, yeah, Acme shoes could themselves take that data and then sort of put the finger on the scale and say, all right. So for instance, the whole iPhone thing, right, where people thought, oh yeah, Apple's trying to make us buy a new phone, and my phone is with the whole situation with the battery.
Right.
Now that was sort of a false positive in a sense, but at the same time, when you have certain open protocols, right, then and that data is there, and that data also can be analyzed in platforms, then guess what? You should be able to have some sort of rigor that can establish a watermark and say, okay, well, Acme Shoes said that it's time to buy a new pair of shoes, but Acme Co. over here says that my shoes are fine, and I should at least get another 2 months or whatever, and this is the data. Gotcha. And so when that data can be analyzed, and if you have different platforms that you can integrate,
right,
then you have a situation where not just one. So it's the whole thing. Who's going to watch the watcher, right?
Right.
And so you have some sort of sanity check against things like that. But naturally there'll be somebody who's it's just like bar soap, right? They actually have an emotion specialist that figures out how fast your bar soap is going to basically run down the drain when you use it. If you still use bar soap.
Wow,
so
okay.
yeah. Oh yeah. So I mean, it's just sort of somebody always knows better than you and will fool you.
Right. Okay. Very, very, very nice. So let's start talking about, kind of shift gears to how people make money. I know that the subject of this podcast is how to monetize IoT in your city. So tell us a little bit about how can people begin getting involved in the ecosystem of the Internet of Things to begin making money, and if you could touch on that, and then maybe go into maybe like what careers are out there that are available in this IoT ecosystem.
Okay, so first and foremost, I believe a really low cost, low barrier to entry into IoT is through the Things Network. And the reason why I say that is because, IoT, there are a lot of things there are a lot of ways that you can get to connectivity, right? So the connectivity component is the component that is the game changer. And so this is like a big dog versus little dog. This is like big dog versus a puppy scenario. And so the carriers that are already there in the world, that already have the infrastructure, they've got the towers, they've got the roaming agreements, they are pushing their own product, which is Cat M1. And so basically you end up paying for connectivity to their network over cellular. And it's like a really super scaled back, pared down version of just a wireless connectivity plan. And this allows you to have more real-time communication, as I said, the roaming. But when you look at an IoT device, it creates a scenario to where you end up consuming a lot of power, right? Trying to use cellular. Wi-Fi ends up using quite a bit of power. Bluetooth uses some power. Bluetooth Low Energy is much better. But then you have a technology called LoRaWAN, and that's LoRaWAN. Okay. And so LoRaWAN is what all of the craze is about today. And LoRaWAN is one of the primary technologies that's utilized in the Things Network. And so the Things Network, it's a community-initiated LoRaWAN, low power wide area network, or an LPWAN, low power wide area network. And so when you think wide area network or WAN, you think range. It's also and so what makes the Things Network interesting is it's a collaboratively built community initiative, right? And this is built on top of free and libre open source software and open governance. So the network literally has a manifesto. And in that manifesto, it basically says that anyone should be able to set up for free things that connect to gateways that may be their own or may not be their own. So what that means is that I have a gateway in my home, and this gateway, it broadcasts out to the community. Well, no, I'm sorry. No, it doesn't broadcast. All it does is receive. But let's just, for the sake of simplicity, say that it provides coverage out into the community. And so anyone with a device that uses this LoRaWAN technology can come along and connect their device. And it'll be able to route traffic to the internet, and they can monitor it on the panel. They can have actions that are fired against certain conditions and different conditionals. And so this is the component where I say it's the game changer, because see, the community itself are the ones who are driving it. So this isn't me selling anything. This isn't the Things Network per se selling anything. This is us as people who are deploying gateways. So right now, I think the estimate is like there are about 3,200 gateways worldwide. In Europe, I think around 80% of the gateways in Europe. So you go anywhere practically in Western Europe, you can have connectivity for free. So you take your thing and you just provision it with these keys, right? Basically, which is sort of like, it's not a password, but it's a way that you connect to the network, and boom, you've got connectivity. So you've got major companies who are not only behind this, but who are also developing devices and using these devices on this community network, and also contributing to that community network.
Gotcha. So is the power in it, it's collecting, it's using the data that's flowing through this network? Is that what the...
No, so this is the power of it is that for low cost, I can make a device. So like my desk is covered with devices that I've made, with sensors that I've made that can sense things. So for a low cost, I can take a device, build it. Let's just say for $12, I can build a device that will run off of a battery for well over 10 years. Like, no lie, it'll easily run for 10 years. And depending on where I am in the world, I may have free connectivity, right? Free connectivity. That and this connectivity through this gateway is donated infrastructure by people like you, me, big companies. Gotcha. Period, right? And so that's where the power is, because you've now took a thing to where it's like, okay, first I've got to pay quite a bit to get this cellular modem in my device. Then I've also got to scale up my battery, and the other use cases around it are the fact that these very small low power devices can also do geolocation, right? And so what that means is that you've got this thing that can be scaled down to, about the size of a stick of gum, or a stick of gum folded in half.
Right. That
is low power, long range, and it can run off a very small battery that you can do tracking with. And without GPS, and so there is a huge potential. I mean, this technology is so hot that a satellite was up. I was in Amsterdam, February 1st through the 3rd, for the first annual Things conference, the first annual Things Network conference, and there was a satellite flying over at about 500 kilometers up, and it was beaming a signal. It was beaming a LoRaWAN signal, and it was captured at the conference and was printing out a message live at the conference. This technology, when I say long range, so if you took your wireless access point, mm-hmm. and let's just say you put it in your window, how far do you think that could go?
I would say around, let's see, maybe 300, 500 feet.
Yeah, no, this technology can, so right now I've got a gateway in a room behind a concrete wall and 3 other walls, and this thing goes 600 meters out into my neighborhood. 600 meters.
Okay.
Now,
that's around 1,800 feet or more.
Yeah, it's 3.3 feet a meter. Okay, now if I put this thing on my roof, I was able to get 9.1 kilometers.
Oh wow.
9.1 kilometers with very low power, mind you. And the antenna I was using was a piece of wire, literally a piece of wire. And so what that says is that, okay, for a very low cost, people mm-hmm. can enter into this market of IoT, make devices, and have a network to connect to, as is already happening. So right now, there's a project called HeatSeek. I mean, and this is like real world implication stuff. and it's HEATSEEK.org, heatseek.org. So what they're doing in New York with this technology is they are using temperature sensors. So in New York, it's illegal for a landlord to turn your heat off, right? Because see, in a lot of the affordable housing areas, people may have some issues, right? And what they try to do is they turn the heat off to force you out. Yeah. Well, that's against the law. So HeatSeek, what they've done is they've used LoRaWAN sensors, and these sensors they say, okay, this is the outside temperature, and this is the minimum. They've literally got a number to where a figure to where they say, okay, it's against the law for it to be this cold in a house or in an apartment in New York, right? Literally, and then they take the delta and they say, okay, well, it's too cold in this apartment. The landlord must have cut off the heat because it's super cold in New York and nobody wants it to be, let's say, 50 degrees in their home. Right. And so they're able to use that data to go after landlords that are basically being I won't use bad words, but they're able to go after those landlords who are doing unethical things by utilizing this technology, which all they do is create the sensor. It is completely they create the sensor and provision it for the network, and that access to the network is donated. That infrastructure is donated by, as I said, people like you and me.
Interesting. So that's what the Things Network is. Tell us a little bit of how do people become involved?
Okay, so it's very simple.
Before you answer that question, how did you become involved? And then talk to us about how do others become involved.
Okay, so how I became involved was, truth be told, I hate buzzwords. I hate buzzwords with a passion. So IoT, I've been around embedded GNU Linux, and so I've been doing the IoT stuff for some time. Right. And so I was just looking at different technologies for communication, and I'm also a ham radio operator. So anything with radio, I'm interested. Okay. And boom, LoRaWAN sort of came across, and I was making some things, and I was actually looking at different closed networks, and then I ran across the Things Network. And so the Things Network was born out of these two guys in Amsterdam in 2015. They went to this meetup, and this commercial LoRaWAN network was being launched, and they said, you know what, we should be able to offer that to people in our area. And so they started it, and now they route like 4 million messages a day. As I said, there's about 3,200 gateways connected. Now, when you think about a gateway, think about the gateway as people. It's not just 3,200 gateways. That's people that are connecting these gateways. I did some math, and that's about $1 million invested in just the gateway. Not the power to the gateways, not the internet connections, not anything else, just the purchase of the gateway is over $1 million invested. And the gateway can range anywhere from $12 to, realistically like $300 to $1,500, $2,000. And so I looked at this and I read the manifesto, and I said, man, this is my stuff. These are my people. Because I'm a big free software guy, and most of the tools that you got command line tools, you've got a GUI interface. They're looking to open anything that's not open, and this is going to be open. And so let's just say 90% of this network is open now. And so I said, I need to get involved in this. And so what you can do is you can go to thethingsnetwork.org, which is thethingsnetwork.org/map. And then when you look at that map, you can see how far we're behind in the U.S. So if you look at the map, you can see most of Western Europe and most of the East, for that matter, is covered, right? And so you look at that map and then you zoom into your area. And let's just say, let's zoom into Ohio, right? And if you look at Ohio, you can see, oh, there's a node in Cincinnati, there's one in Canton, there's one in Cleveland, and there are a few in Indianapolis. And so you know by that, if you're in proximity, in the right proximity, now everybody's not going to get 10 kilometers of range. It depends on your elevation, different, a bunch of different factors.
Right.
But if there is no coverage, then you look and you say, you know what, I want to bring coverage because this enables smart cities, right? Like this is the thing that's going to get us to a lot of devices by 2020. This is the thing that's going to make your city smart because of initiatives like HeatSeek and many other. When I was in Amsterdam, the president of the Manhattan Bureau, and I mean from New York, was literally in Amsterdam speaking. Her name is Gail Brewer. She's got a Lower Wayne Gateway on her desk because she understands that this is the thing that powers civic hacking, smart cities. This is the growth engine for incubators, accelerators, all of the things, all of those things beneath, even in education, research. Like this is a very, very powerful technology, and so as I said, if you don't see a gateway on there, you say, okay, well, what can I do about maybe getting a gateway, and or if you do see a gateway that's nearby you,
right? You
should look at making a device. But even if you don't make a device, you can see that on that same site there's communities. If you click on the communities link, you go down, you can see whether or not there's a community in your area. I became an initiator of the Things Network, and the initiators, the goal of initiator is to, basically do outreach, inform the community, make meetups, and do what you can to try and ensure that there's growth in your area of this technology, and try to spread the word in regards to the Things Network. But at the same time, there's being that we are the network, that there are people, this is decentralized, and there is no one person that owns this. And so an initiator is basically a steward, right? An advocate of the network, which I am. Even though in my area, I am the network. Literally, like right now, I'm the only gateway, but I'm working, quite hard to not only do advocacy, but to get the cities, municipalities, and other businesses involved in deploying the network, at large in my area. Because I also was in New York at right before the Things Conference in January, and everywhere had connectivity except for Queens, right? Queens didn't have connectivity, but I can't say everywhere, but a lot of other areas in New York had connectivity. And so what that means is that some kid in their home could get a little. Could make a little sensor and connect that thing to the internet and be able to just marvel at the fact that they can look at temperature and humidity or whatever the sensor is sensing and then have actions against that, or some group, some meetup can be hacking on devices and then they'll have connectivity, or other real world use cases, just like I was telling you with heatseek.org. You've also got groups that are monitoring humidity levels, in low cost, in certain affordable housing, and say, okay, well, if the humidity is above a certain amount too long, then we've got the potential for mold issues in this environment. And that project is alive and well in New York, right? Already as it is. There's also a smart mousetrap made by a company called Signal, Xignal, And it's literally a mousetrap that reports when a mouse is in it. When the trap gets triggered, it reports it, and then you can just go in and, empty the mousetrap without having to leave that thing there for too long. And so it is more of a call to action in regards to the individuals who are going to take part in this, because we are at the precipice of something very big and something very momentous in the IoT space, strictly because the price point and the accessibility to connectivity we are donating this infrastructure.
Right.
That's what's happening. The infrastructure is donated. Now all is left is for you to sit down and say, okay, all right, let's just go through some use cases. So for instance, if you are in a city that is in the path of an airport, or if there are certain environmental factors in regards to noise, pollutants,
right.
You can buy a sensor or some sensors or get some sort of sponsorship or funding. If you don't have the money or the means to build these sensors with some sort of hackerspace and then monitor your environment and then have civic action that people will actually say, okay, well, we now have this data, and we need to do something about these concerns in regards to air pollution and or sound pollution.
Yeah. Yep. I'm definitely. It's funny that you mentioned that, because I just me and my wife and we just purchased a house out in the suburbs, and there's I don't know if there's an app called Nextdoor, where where people they talk about concerns within their neighborhood or whatever is going on in their neighborhood. And I remember there was a post about the increased noise pollution, because we don't live too far from the Cincinnati Northern Kentucky airport. And I think they added a couple of hubs to the airport recently, and people were complaining about the additional noise that this created. And so having something like a sensor to be able to kind of collect this data on the increased noise from these airplanes, and be able to say to go to. I think because Amazon opened a hub here or something like that, and be able to go to Amazon and say, hey, like we've got this data here that states that shows that since you created the or opened this hub here in the Cincinnati Northern Kentucky area, that noise pollution or what have you went up by this amount, and we need for you to kind of reroute your the way your planes travel, right? So that our neighborhood doesn't, I guess, suffer from this additional noise pollution. Okay,
so and that's got great context. Do you want to do it? We can do it, right? Like this is so that use case right there. Right. So what ends up happening is, so let's just say we look into doing that. At that point, you have now provided awareness in hardware, right? Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of other communities that have that same problem or a similar problem. And so when you look at that with the increased air traffic, you've got an environmental sensor that can, as I say, sense noise.
Yep.
You can, but also you want to sense. You want an environmental sensor that's going to sense potentially something like carbon dioxide, maybe from the fuel exhaust, or whether or not, and then of course you do temperature, and so then you've got data that you can capture. And the beautiful thing about the Things Network is the integration. So it integrates with a site called My Devices. It's MyDevices, My Devices. Mm-hmm. And the minute you go to My Devices, you look at it, you say, whoa, this is cool. right? And so my devices are panels, or basically that you can make dashboards that display your data. And so not only can you route that data to my devices, but there's an integration, there's an HTTP integration, which allows JSON objects to be sent anywhere, right? So basically, there's another site called freeboard.io, freeboard.io. And Freeboard can do the same thing. You can make dashboards. But also with Freeboard, they got a Git repo. You can pull in that repo, and then you can deploy your own local boards. And so right there, you say, all right, you got the whole shoot match. You got the hardware, you got access to connectivity, and you got the dashboard.
Right.
At that point, you should be looking if you can sell that, right? Like that is something that you can actually sell. Now the billing component isn't there, but there are communities who had like somewhere in England they've got the flood network, and they were monitoring water levels, and so from a community need, you end up having a use case that's got a lot of practical business implications too, because you've got warehouses that may need similar types of monitoring. Let's just say you take out the environmental sensor component, but now you have a business that you can deliver a full end-to-end solution. So as I said, IoT is an ecosystem, and within that ecosystem, you've got to be able to integrate other things and be able to partner. And so, in having access to the Things Network, which has integrations with my devices, it also has integrations with IFTTT, which stands for if this then that, right? And so IFTTT, so you know IFTTT. So for instance, like my garage door is like it can, it's on IFTTT. All right, let's just say I make a sensor that goes in my trash can that can detect sulfur, right? And so when your garbage starts to get funky, it's primarily like a sulfur gas thing. Right. And so my sulfur sensor can say, you know what, it's about to get funky in the garage, crack the garage door. But then I've also got a moisture sensor outside that says, well, you know what, the moisture level of the lawn is a little too high, so it's probably raining. Let's not crack that garage door too much because you end up getting water in the garage. And all of these things can happen without me having to go into the garage and it smell like a junkyard. Did I lose you? Hello.
Right. It's funny.
Hello?
You there? Yeah.
Hello.
Sorry about that. My mute was acting weird. It's funny that you mentioned IFTT. Is it IFTTT?
Yeah, IFTTT. If this, then that.
Then that. Right. I actually just started using that in order to control my smart TV through my Google Home.
Really?
So now my Google Home communicates with with IFTTT, and there's an app called Quick Remote that actually communicates with my Roku TV to do various things, turn it off, change channels, and that type of thing. So
so with that, the Things Network has an integration. So let's just say you had a proximity sensor, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got some sort of logic in IFTT that says, all right, if it's 6 o'clock and he goes by this sensor, which is near the door or whatever, then turn the TV to channel such and such because, let's just say you got a certain show that always comes on, something like that. I mean, like there are so many implications. But getting back to the whole, your whole community thing, do you live in an HOA community?
Yes.
Okay, well, so if you approach them, I mean, we can do it. I mean, I'm dead serious about it, and in the sense of me or us being able to just provide you in your area with that capability. And this isn't something I'm selling anybody. This is just me saying, if that's what you guys really want to do, then, I'd totally be up for giving you information, maybe throwing out some, and you just use Arduino. You just use regular Arduino, and as I said, the devices can be quite inexpensive. And so, but before you start, you really need to look at whether or not there's any course of action, right? Whether or not there's some sort of city ordinance or anything that you can go to whoever manages your district or some sort of alderman or whatever and say, okay, look, this is the problem we have.
Right.
Is there some action that we can take? Now at the same time though, you still could just do it just to do it and say, this is the impact. We do appreciate because those are jobs that Amazon brought to your area. You appreciate that, but they still could do something about the traffic. They could totally.
Yeah. I mean, we could definitely discuss that, after the podcast and things like that, and talk about how to get involved. And maybe this can be, maybe we can even do a thing where we track this on a bit, from as in kind of like an article. Start off as an article, and we kind of release an article every couple of weeks just to kind of track the progress, and then people can see, just kind of as a proof of concept how this can actually be implemented and be effective within their neighborhood or area.
Yeah, and look so pretty at the same time. When you see the dashboard, it's like, oh man, that looks so nice.
Right.
And then, as I said, there is a human component. There's a quality of life component behind this too. So yeah, if you guys are up for it, I'm not just saying it to say it. Like we totally can do this. We could write down. We could do the proof of concept, and totally get this up and rolling. And then. Also, because this is bigger than your neighborhood, this is a Cincinnati Smart City Initiative thing. This is a smart city because, so I just saw the other day, right, and I totally missed this. One area nearby here, there was an RFP for $1.8 million for a company who could build a smart parking, not smart parking, a smart monitoring system. All you needed to do was say, there's a truck in this spot, you can't go in there. And so that's one of the really common use cases for LoRaWAN is smart parking, smart metering, asset tracking, livestock tracking, pet, tracking, all of those things. And so a company got, I think they ended up getting $1.4 million for that contract, literally for things that I could point you to right now that A, would cost the city far less. B, you know what? You might be that company that gets that $1.4 million for an investment of about, let's just say, realistically, just in hardware. Man, that literally like $4,000. It's crazy. It is crazy. Yeah, I mean, like you talk about margin. Yeah, so I mean, this is real stuff. So, and then the city can say, well, wow, we've got this LoRaWAN network. How about we look at some smart meters? let's start looking at many other ways that we can augment what we currently have instead of us, because a lot of times when they have like these smart technologies, they are paying, they're using, Motorola has a technology called Flex. They're paying for these cellular technologies, and it's not cheap, right? Over the long run, and they is you, the taxpayer. And so if you can, so if you can lower those costs, then you do your city a solid one, and you keep your money in your pocket, and then you enable a smarter, more informed future in the city.
Nice. Definitely interesting. And for people out there that are listening on this podcast, I mean, he just told you a myriad of ways that you can get involved in IoT and help to monetize, help your city, help yourself become more involved in this boom and make some money while you're doing it. So excellent. And we'll have the links that we mentioned in the show notes. The internet, or the thingsnetwork.org, my devices, heatsync.org, what was it, freeboard.io. I'm shooting a couple in the Slack channel right now. I just put in heatsync. So we'll have all that in the show notes.
Most definitely. Definitely.
So before we get out of here, I want to touch on your on DevOps Days in Indianapolis and your involvement in DevOps Days, and then we have a couple announcements about that for the BIT community. So tell us, real quick, and kind of what is DevOps Days Indianapolis about, and kind of tell us what your involvement is in it.
Okay, so DevOps Days in general is it's basically a worldwide series of events that focus on DevOps in development, IT infrastructure, and that whole sandwich, and let's just say the lack of information around DevOps, even though there's a dearth of information. Because DevOps is not easy. It's just totally not easy. And so I'm helping organize DevOps Days in Indy with a team of at least five other passionate individuals. There's the primary organizer is a Indy native, and so where he goes, I go. One of those types of deals. So, I'm all, and so, we both are in IT. He's big on automation, and with DevOps comes automation. And so, what we're looking to do is to have a pretty nice event, July 23rd through the 24th in Indianapolis at the Marriott downtown, which this event is a very unique event in the fact that it's in a really nice hotel. There's food, Wi-Fi, exhibitors, great content, great sponsors coming on board, which as well, we're also looking for additional sponsors. So if you want to, take part in DevOps Days Indy as a sponsor, please check us out on DevOpsDays.org. And which we'll link, in the show notes as well, and click that sponsor link and support the event.
Right. Cool.
And two, one more thing, we're proud to have Blacks in Technology as a community sponsor. Very proud to have Blacks in Technology community sponsor. So one component as to why I'm here, we currently, our call for papers was closed earlier. But we looked at some of our content, and we'd like to have a more diverse offering in regards to content, and give a platform for more underrepresented voices. So if you go to papercall.io and you search for DevOps Days Indy. You'll be able to find the event. And right now we have, we're extending our CFP so that some people can get in and, hopefully, as I said, we can have more diverse voices, whether you're brown, black, women, a woman, women, because we really need some, we could have diversity in regards to different ethnicities, but
right.
we still might not get enough women who are submitting talks. So please, ladies, we urge you to submit talks to the event so that we can have you all represented as well, and people can see women doing, great things at the event, which will then in turn give other people courage, and people get used to seeing these women speaking, about awesome content and sharing their stories, and us being able to hear their aspect of DevOps in their trials.
Very cool, very cool. And like you said, Blacks in Technology is a community sponsor for the event. So what we're going to do is we're going to have we'll be posting something very soon within the next day or so about our sponsorship, or about our partnership, I should say, with DevOps Days in Indianapolis. We've done this before with a couple of different DevOps Days. I think DevOps Days Chicago. I think maybe DevOps Days Detroit. And so with that comes, of course, there's going to be a discount. So there'll be a discount code listed on the article as well, and then we're gonna hold a contest, because what we want to do is we want to provide our community with the opportunity to be able to attend this event if they choose to. So we'll provide an opportunity for people to engage in the contest and tell us their thoughts about why they're interested in attending, and then we'll make an announcement on who actually wins the passes that we have for DevOps Days in Indianapolis. So that's great. I work in the DevOps space. I think it's a great space to be in. I always encourage more black men and women to get into the space, because there's just so much opportunity with so many companies, with everything being. This all ties into the Internet of Things, and everything being connected, and companies being started around this, and them needing good people to be able to take their business needs and translate that into infrastructure that's able to scale up and to be resilient and things like that. And so this is a really good opportunity to be able to go to a conference and learn more about DevOps methodologies and things of that nature. And learn some things. So this is a really good partnership. I really I'm happy about being able to partner with DevOps Days once again, to be able to offer this opportunity to our members.
Yeah, well, we definitely appreciate it, and two, it's about learning, right? And there are many different styles. DevOps is evolving. But if you want to work in teams, this is something to where, and the funny thing about DevOps is that when you go to DevOps Days, you have major companies showing up saying, well, you know what, we're not doing DevOps too well, and this is what we're doing, and this is what we're hoping to change, and or these are the changes that we made 2 years ago. And they want to share their experiences with you or with us in order to, either get feedback and or, help individuals better work in teams, better get their developers, better for the system administrators in regards to communication, and make them more agile, right? This, because nowadays DevOps as a practice, is your product, right? Like it actually is your product, and so and people are learning that the hard way to a certain extent, and so what this event is about is having a space where, as I said, people can share parts of their methodology, share some of their successes and failures, and and be able to learn, and also it's also a great place for you to get tons of resources, jobs, all of the above, and it is an unconference format. So we basically choose the content as a community, right? Like you show up and there's votes, and from that there are different open sessions, and you could float around the open sessions and get your field of content from different sessions. Take part in our general sessions where we have individuals who will be speaking about a myriad of things. Right now, security, we had a lot of security talk. So security in DevOps is it's a big deal, especially with all of the latest issues that we've had. So you can definitely expect some really awesome content about that. And for the DevOps newbies, there's always content in there for you guys as well, because at all points, someone is making a new foray into DevOps at all points.
Well,
and go ahead.
I was going to say I'll definitely be submitting my talk to DevOps Days in Indianapolis. I mean, Indianapolis is only less than a couple of hours away from Cincinnati, so that's an easy trip. But I do want to reiterate kind of what you said about companies wanting to implement DevOps methodologies. I was at reInvent this year, and not to say that DevOps is the cloud or what have you, but DevOps and the cloud are closely related in a lot of ways, and someone there was talking about the number of people that are on Amazon Cloud, or the number of businesses, and it's really not that significant. Like, Amazon makes a killing with their cloud computing practice, right? Their business, and there's not a ton of companies, as percentage wise, that are actually utilizing the cloud. Period. And so that tells you right there. I think it's like single digits, right, of companies that are actually on the in the cloud, right? And so that tells you the potential of being able to go into a company and say, look, you want to be leaner, you want to be faster, you want to get your product out there in a way that's a lot faster than your competition, and you want to do this in a way that is going to allow you to grow quicker, and then you need to implement DevOps methodologies into what you're doing, and maybe even get into the cloud while doing that. And there's a lot of companies that are needing that type of skill set. And so if you get into DevOps, I mean, that's a huge potential for an individual to go into. So.
Oh yeah. So you hit it right on the head. That's tantamount to your career, right, or your company, because. I mean, there's a lot of ways to move, but if you're doing DevOps, or if you're looking at scale, you're going to be looking at Amazon at some point. Period. Right? Like, even if you may not make the decision to use them, you're going to be looking at Amazon at some point, and it just is what it is. And so I mean, Amazon is and so exactly what you said is like, Amazon is doing very well in that space, but the fact that not a lot of companies know what to do or know how to utilize it in that manner. Yeah. That just shows you that the growth, whoa, man, that's
right.
Woo, man, yeah. Lots of potential there.
Yep, definitely. So, I'll whether or not, my talk is accepted or not, I'll definitely be at DevOps Days in Indianapolis. We'll definitely connect there. So we'll talk there. So before we get out of here, how can people contact you? Give us your Twitter, your emails. If you're on social media, how can people reach out to you?
Okay, so the first thing, if you want to connect with me in regards to DevOps Days Indy, you go to facebook.com/DevOps Days Indy, and that's where you can see the event in regards to Facebook. If you just Google DevOps Days Indy, you'll be able to get to our DevOps Days official page on the DevOps Days site. Me personally, if you want to get involved in regards to the Things Network, or you got any questions about IoT, you can email me. What email should I give? Well, so you know what? Actually, so I've got this wild card that you could basically send an email. You can make up an email address and send it to me, and I'll get it. So you could say Tigerface at ttnorlando.com. Let me make sure. Yeah, ttnorlando.com. So just email Bryan at ttnorlando.com, and that's how you can get me. I've also got ttnorlandofl on Twitter. It's a new Twitter account. Only got 7 followers. Jump on there, show me some love.
TTN Orlando. Also, what is that on Twitter?
Yeah, TTN Orlando FL. Yeah.
FL, okay.
Yeah, also on Twitter, there's DevOps Days Indy, DevOpsDaysIndy on Twitter, which you can follow that, do some retweeting, help us out, follow us in regards to other, new developments, especially if you're in the Midwest or in that area, right? Like we totally want, we want to enrich the area. Like that's why DevOps Days Indy is there, to bring that awesome content, a lot of, local and national and international speakers to the area to enrich us and, help us learn.
Excellent. Do you, and before we get out of here, do you know Tamika Reed?
Tamika Reed, of course I know Tamika Reed,
okay.
Man.
Yeah. So okay. You should definitely reach out to her to come and speak, because she's dope. Super dope, and so super intelligent, and she would be an excellent speaker for DevOps Days Indy, and for anyone that's listening. Come on. This is an opportunity, like, even if you've never spoken at a conference before, give it a whirl. Everyone's had, went through their first time at speaking at conferences. I know it can be intimidating, it can be a daunting experience, but let our voices be heard as well. Blacks in Technology, we're a platform for increasing visibility, and we have a lot of opportunities from people that are allies and from organizations that want more diverse speakers, and we have to show up. We have to be there and we have to be submitting talks and things like that. Otherwise, these organizations they're not going to keep coming back and saying, hey, we need. So we have to show up. We have to do our part. They do their part reaching out, so we have to do our part in reaching back out and saying, hey, yeah, we're going to submit talks and try to make this a more diverse conference. With that being said, Bryan, I definitely want to thank you for coming on and speaking with us about the Internet of Things, talking to us about the Things Network, talking to us about DevOps Days in Indianapolis. Do you have any last words before we jump off of here?
No, sir. That's it. I thank you very much for having me, and as I said, we appreciate having Blacks in Technology as a community sponsored partner, and let's just follow up. What stay on the line in regards to that local initiative using the Things Network.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that, and we'll get something up on the site about our sponsorship for DevOps Days in Indianapolis. Until then, man, we'll talk again, and good luck and best wishes for everything for you in the future, man. Definitely.
Thank you very much. You too.
All right, take care.